Hi, Hugo and Sonya here, and welcome to another edition of Sartorial Talks. Today we're going to do something a little fun, different. We're going to talk about the telltale signs of a handmade jacket. I'm going to throw some words out, Hugo. Are you ready?
I'm
You're going
more than
to
ready.
comment, and we're going to talk about, first of all, what you look for maybe on someone else's jacket.
So you speak about bespoke jacket, but it can be
We're
also...
talking about bespoke, handmade, even the upper end ready-to-wear handmade jackets.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we
didn't...
Name
a few Sartorial, for example, of handmade jackets that are high-end, but are actually made by hand, but they're ready to wear.
Well, let's say they are not bespoke in the sense that we know it, because there's factories, handmade factory where people group in circles to do only pockets or to do only lapels. So, of course, the big league of this handmade suit, even if they are not strictly bespoke, are Cesare Attolini, probably one of the most beautiful suits on earth, Kiton, whose founder just passed away a few months, so we just pay homage to Mr. Ciro Paone, somebody very important in our trade. And then we have a little notch under, but still good quality way, Gianluca Isaiah in Napoli. Actually, those three are in Naples, actually. We have Sant'Andrea Milano,
in Fano,
which factory is in Fano on the Adriatic coast of Italy. We have Belvest also in the Venetian region. So we have a few here and there, people who are doing handmade suits.
We could call them tailors.
Well, we call
they are
them
actually
sartoria.
sewing.
We call it sartoria. That is
Yes.
to say, a place where a lot of people are grouped to craft suit, and they are separated by different tasks, but still everything is made by hand.
That's true. And we could say Kiton does their crafting in circles. San Andrea, for example, they're all spread out in long lines. So they have different systems of crafting, but maybe you wouldn't go so far as to say everyone's a tailor, but there are some tailors, there's some seamstresses, and then there's some apprentices that are just learning.
And just to disclaim everything, I mean, and Cesare Attolini ready-to-wear or made-to-order jacket can cost double the price of a bespoke suit.
That's
because
a great
that's
point.
A very high price.
That's a great
point.
But
it means something also that the hand still have a share of voice, even if little, in a very industrial world. But the hand still have a share of voice, because how do you explain the success of Attolini or Kiton, who can sell a very expensive suit because they are made by hand, and they are really made by hand to customers around the world? It means that it still resonates in the head of people.
It does. And you know what I noticed? That all the sartoria that you talked about were Italian.
That's right.
That's right. Interesting, huh?
Well, maybe
those are the really upper echelon sartoria that have a solid reputation in the business. Okay, let's take an example.
I just want to finish on that. Maybe there are some in the UK, but I don't know of. We know the tailors very well in the UK. We know some factories who are doing, let's say, mechanized ready-to-wear, but I don't have an example of in my head. So if you know a really handmade, there's one in the US. Oxford with double X.
In Chicago, yes.
Yeah, OXXFORD, who are doing garments, maybe not all the garments, but a line strictly by hand.
That's right.
I have no name that comes to my mind in England, but it also tells us something. If you go to Napoli, because Attolini, Isaiah, and Kiton, they're all in Napoli. And so it means that if you go to Napoli, it's maybe, apart from Saviro, it's maybe the place where we can find the biggest concentration of tailors.
Absolutely.
In the world. There are tailors pretty much everywhere in Napoli. And so it means that even the factory has been protecting this tradition of handiwork, which is very important in Napoli. And this is why I make this distinction, because the hand, either it is cultural, like in Napoli, Italy, they use the hand to sew, or it is because it adds something. And in many aspects, of luxury jacket or really high-end jackets or suits or garments in general, the hand can still add something different, but of course not for the same price.
So we're talking about some really beautiful pieces of clothing that do have handmade operations.
Yes.
But they have that ready-to-wear element where you can go into the shop, buy the suit, and walk out.
Yes, or maybe with a few alterations here and there.
Exactly. And this is an explanation of when we say a good ready-to-wear suit is better than a bad made-to-measure suit.
Of course.
These are some examples of the level where you're going to get some really good items, but with a price tag that is substantial.
Of course,
right?
Very substantial.
Okay, the question is, if you find a mystery jacket,
yes,
and you don't know whether it's handmade or it's, say, industrial, what are 10 things you can do to solve the mystery?
Well,
so let me throw a subject out and you comment.
Sure.
Okay, let's talk about the basics. How about buttons? What would you look for in a button?
Well, the easiest, everybody knows that on a handmade suit, all the buttons are functioning buttons. That is to say, let's see if of course, it's a bespoke jacket by NH Sartorial in Milano. And of course, my buttons, are functioning buttons.
They function. You have two. That's your
functioning
signature.
So well that I just bumped on the microphone.
You have two buttons there, right? That's kind of your signature.
It's my signature.
Yes.
But functioning buttons.
So the buttons are working. That used to be called a surgeon's cuff because the story goes the surgeons would unbutton their cuffs, roll up their sleeves, wash their hands, and then put the buttons back into their working position and do their job. But obviously, surgeons don't wear suits today.
Yeah, I mean, some people try to mimic the bespoke details, and that's something I'm not really happy with, because you can't fool the customer. And this is what we try to explain on this channel, is that it's okay to have functioning buttons, but don't do it on purpose to show that it is a bespoke jacket or it is a handmade jacket. Some people go as far as to put some contrasting buttonholes here to show, and then you shake the hand of somebody and say, look at my handmade buttonhole. This is for me ridiculous. Right. And most of the time people like us, not today, I'm sorry for that, but most of the time I don't even unbutton them. I wear them buttoned.
Really, we barely know if we've unbuttoned them or not. Sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't, which is sort of spontaneous.
It is.
And with the contrasting buttonholes, now some people are relaxing on that and doing it just for the sportiness of a certain jacket. So it's a really personal choice. Yeah. I agree with you. If there is a contrasting buttonhole, at least let it be done in a clever way so that it blends or complements.
Yeah, I would add, I know you have a full list, but let's not forget one thing.
Yes.
It's for me, it's difficult because you ask me if I see a jacket here on the hanger, how can I inspect it to tell you if it's handmade or not? That's easy and not easy, but we're going to discuss this. But when I see a jacket on somebody, I will not say all the time, but I would say 75% of the time, maybe 80%, maybe a little bit more, I can tell immediately.
You can tell.
If it's a bespoke suit, of course, because the fit is everything.
Okay.
No matter what, you have functioning buttons or not, it doesn't. The fit is, you can't compete with a real bespoke jacket made to your measurement by a real tailor right there with 3 or 4 fittings. But even at the high level, ready to wear, you see the fit.
You do.
Immediately. It's different. Only it will take you a few years to train your eye, but you see it. And that's, for me, the main thing, is that with the hand, you can shape a jacket so that it really, really goes well on the body. And even if it's not exactly your size, the fact that it is crafted by hand and the curves are made with an iron by hand and they use real horsehair inside, real, even the pieces of canvassing as made by hand makes the whole difference, is that the garment is living with you. Literally. I'm sorry I was a little bit poetic. No, that's
right. Even if it's a deconstructed jacket and there's not so much canvas inside the jacket that's molding to the body, you still have the canvas inside the lapel and a few details of the way the jacket's sewn together, the type, the quality of the fabric that makes that fit
absolutely
sort of conform to the body.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're talking about buttons, okay? And you said if I could walk up to someone, I can 75% of the time tell whether he or she's wearing a bespoke suit.
Yes.
Or not. Or a handmade suit or not. Do you remember what the tailors do to determine whether the suit someone's someone's wearing is handmade or not? They look at a certain thing.
Well, they can look under the lapel.
Well, they wouldn't do that in public, though.
Oh, that's right.
So
they look at the buttonhole?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I've heard this from a couple
On
of
the lapel.
tailors. They'll look directly at the buttonhole. Okay, we're not tailors. I'm sure I can't understand that buttonhole like a tailor would. But he'll look directly at the buttonhole on the lapel to see if it's sewn well, if it's clean, if it's not a disaster. And that little buttonhole will tell a lot about the entire jacket.
Yeah, the only problem that is today, it tells for sure, you can tell if the buttonhole has been made by hand.
Yes.
It doesn't tell if the jacket has been made by hand, but at least you're sure. Well, I would say most of the time is the buttonhole is made by hand, it means it's a handmade jacket.
This is what
but not all the time, because now people try to mimic, and some people like to take industrial stuff and bring it to an alteration tailor and just have to change the buttonhole. After all, no problem.
People can do what they want.
Well, yeah, but
that's an exception rather than
Milanese buttonhole like that is beautiful.
That is a beautiful Milanese buttonhole. That's true. Even a well-sewn buttonhole that's not Milanese is beautiful too. And we talk about Milanese.
Let's continue, darling.
Okay, so let's just stay around this lapel area. So far, we've covered 2 out of 10 items, right? Mm-hmm. Stay around the lapel area. Okay, what can you look at on the lapel? And this time, you may have to touch the jacket to tell whether it's bespoke, handmade, or not.
Well, first of all, most of the time you see, we can't see it too much here because it's the heavy pattern. But you will see on the reverse of a lapel, specifically on any handmade lapel, you will see little dots like that. Little dots that are very visible.
And what does that mean if you see those dots? What does it mean?
They are present here, but with this pattern you can't see them.
But you can feel them, no?
Yeah, well, you can feel. It means that inside this lapel there's a canvas, a piece of canvas and horsehair. And most of the time, even some very famous bespoke tailor now, they buy the lapel canvas already done with what we call the loose stitching, already done with a Strubble machine. So I don't want to go too technical, but it's a machine who's doing this loose stitching. The real people who are working according to the gospel of tailoring, they still do this by hand. And this is why you see these little picks everywhere. Is the way it is attached, and only a handmade jacket will feature.
To recap, if you get your hands on a jacket or a suit coat and you turn the lapel over, you should be able to see little individual stitches behind the lapel.
Yes.
And if you can't see them because there's a pattern, you can perhaps feel them.
Yes.
And what that says is that it's been hand sewn. The canvas has been hand sewn into the lapel.
Yeah, which is an extremely long process. This is why now more and more bespoke tailors, and we're not going to give name, but even among the most famous around the world, they buy already made and sewn canvas for the lapel.
Right.
But most of them, they still do it by hand.
They still do it by hand.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time for a very little difference.
What do you think that lends to the look of the jacket? What is the benefit of doing that?
So it's not only important about, I'm not part of the people who are like crazy. It has to be handmade for some kind of mystic reasons or for some kind of shame. I'm not going to show somebody, you see the stitches everywhere.
Exactly.
So this is a handmade. No, this is not for that. It's just for a reason, is that when you have this, it means that the horsehair and the canvas inside has been shaped by hand so that it will be marry with your body much more than a normal industrial stuff that is sewn by a machine.
And if you compare side by side an industrial made jacket with a handmade jacket, you're going to see a lot more fluidity.
Yes.
In the lapel, some life,
and the roll.
Yes.
Which is very important.
Yes.
Also the roll. You can't do this with an industrial jacket because it has. But basically, the idea is to make sure that the canvas is following the shape of your body, and with the memory, you understand the horsehair as a memory position.
Yes.
That is to say, they come back to their
position. It's a snapback, right?
How do you call it?
It's called snapback.
Snapback quality.
Yes.
It makes sure that the lapel really goes with you. But it's very subtle.
Okay.
Most of the people, they will not notice it. But if you train your eye, you will notice it.
You will
and
notice
it has a value. Once
Right.
again, we are talking here because some people say, why handmade? And I agree with them. In some parts of our trade, in some shirting sometime, and it's better to have a little machine than the hand for a durability question.
Right.
But most of the time, is not all the time in bespoke tailoring, the hand will always be more precise, but I would say a little bit more poetic than a machine.
That's well
a
put.
little bit more artistic than a
Yes.
machine. It's the same for shoemaking by hand. Even if technology is here now, nothing will be able to replace the hand of a man, even if it's imprecise. But if it's imprecise, it may be imprecise in the stitching, but it's made for you. So it means you don't really care if the stitching is not really straight, as long as it fits you like a glove.
Right, and
Oh,
I
was
do
very
know
lyrical on this one.
I do know some bespoke houses that don't attach the canvas to the lapel by hand, but there's still beautiful suits. What it says to me when I see that there is hand stitching behind the lapel,
Yep.
which is bringing the canvas and the fabric together, is that they're going the extra mile.
Yes.
They're going the distance.
Well, they do the real traditional ancestral bespoke, and it was done since 100 years, and then they pass from generation to generation. This is one of the easiest shortcuts that you can have on a
yes.
bespoke suit, is just to buy the lapel canvas already loose stitched.
Yes.
Or you can decide to do it by hand, but it's a lot of hours of work.
Or use a machine.
For a different, a Strubble machine, very famous machine.
Yes.
But anyway, we are entering here in the subtleties of the thing. I would say 90% of the people will not even make the difference, will not see the difference between a roll of a bespoke jacket and a normal. But the people who are following us, they want to know that.
They want to know these things.
Yes.
So I will go directly to the lapel again and say, to expound on the subject of the lapel, there is something that's called the belly of the lapel.
Mm-hmm.
And I have not quoted it exactly as I should have in the past, because there's nothing in the scholarly books that defines the belly of the lapel.
Mm-hmm.
So after speaking with, I suppose, 20 to 25 people, they'll agree that the belly of the lapel is when this is curving. This part, instead of going straight.
This one?
Yeah, you're getting a curve. It's the sign of a belly. Now you can't really make that with a machine, from what I understand. That the curve itself has to be done by hand.
Of course, cut by hand at least.
Yeah, cut by hand.
And sewn by hand most of the time.
So if anyone has any more information on that, then we'll be glad to hear
I
it.
didn't know this kind of belly, because it's very counterintuitive to call this part a belly.
I know.
For me, it was more here.
It was more the lower part, but this is a consensus that I've gotten, and there's nothing scholarly in the textbooks that says it's this is what it is. But I had to review that because I don't want to give out information
Ladies
that's
and
not
gentlemen,
correct.
I hope all this is not Hebrew to you, because we are going into the very, very tedious details of a handmade suit. So let's move forward.
Well, so let's move forward.
Yeah.
So the next thing is the roll. Can you describe the roll on the lapel that you would look for if you saw someone wearing a suit and you wondered if it was
hand?
hand?
Roll is a roll.
Yes.
It's okay. An industrial jacket will look like that. It's going to be flat. Okay. Good made-to-measure jacket can go like that, and a real bespoke will do like that. Natural.
Yes.
It's a roll. Well, it's
So look for some kind of roll, whether it's small or large.
But look at this one. For example, this is a 3-roll-2 jacket, so it's even more important because there's a hidden button in the jacket. You see, this button is in the roll, what we call the roll. And you can see it's very natural. It's not too straight like that. It's really natural. That's the roll. And you can only have this because the tailor will work. Everybody thinks that a tailor's most important tools are the shears, the scissors, and the needle and the thread. Well, not exactly. I think the most important tool of a tailor is this extremely heavy hot iron, which is in steel or
So
in cast
important.
iron. It's very heavy. Many tailors have problem of tendonitis because it's super heavy. And the steam they use, and this is what creates the roll.
And the body itself putting it into action.
Exactly.
Right? Forming it with the hands.
You are forming the jacket mostly with an iron and steam, which sounds a little bit prehistorical to our ears in 2022. But that's the truth, and that's the beauty of it.
Okay, traveling up the lapel, we have the notch,
Yes.
which you have the lapel, the notch, and the collar
Here.
above it,
Yep.
right? And one thing that I always look at on someone that's wearing a suit, if they ask me, do you know where my suit's from? I'll look at the notch and I'll see how sophisticated the notch itself is. Sometimes it looks like my brother or sister could have just cut the notch out and sewn it together. And you get a sense of quality or no quality. In yours, there's a specific thing I'm looking at in your notch.
Mm-hmm.
I see that the bottom part
Here,
of the notch is rounded.
a little bit rounded.
And when you see that, it's almost always indicative of some handwork in the
So
jacket.
to make sure I understand, it's not always that it's rounded, but it's not totally square. It has a little bit of personality.
Yes, any edges that are rounded
Okay.
is a good indication of handmade items. If you look at your cuff, for example, on your jacket, yours is squared? Yours is squared.
Well, not
Are
really.
both of them
It's a little
squared?
bit rounded.
Okay, it's also a little rounded. And I could show a picture, or you can look yourself for the bottom part of your jacket.
Oh,
To
I can
see-
stand up. You
Okay,
explain.
I will talk. It is indeed rounded. So we're having rounded quarters, and those are pretty closed quarters. We're not seeing much
quarter
opening.
Close quarter means this. Open quarter means when it's like that, it's more open.
Yes, when it's like this. Yeah. Right. So you, of course, see the rounded corners. So it's another indication that there's some handwork there. And I really like that one because it's easy.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you. I did a lot of effort.
You
to
did a
show the
lot of
people.
effort. You stood. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about Italian handmade jackets. What is the thing that you will look at and is an indication that the jacket's handmade? It's Italian, though. What might you see on the lapel?
The top stitch?
Yeah, the
Or
top stitch or the
overstitch, top stitch? we
pick
call it?
stitch.
Pick stitched.
Yes. So I will put up a picture of a pick stitching on a jacket, and that is something that is very Italian and is almost always handmade. There are some exceptions,
Yeah.
but in general, it's
Very
an indication.
Napolitan, actually.
Very,
more than Italian.
Yes,
It's
of
more
course.
Napolitan.
More Southern Italian.
And this is this pick stitching. So it's quite easy to see if it's done by machine. Well, very few people bother to do it by machine, but some people do because they want to mimic. They want to fool you and make you believe it is handmade. It's very easy. A pick stitch is not very straight. It's by definition, it's not even. Even the distance between each stitch is uneven. And okay, some people even do this uneven with machine to once again, it goes very far, but most of the time it's a sign. You like it or you don't like it. I'm not a big fan of that. I have it on my Solaris suit, if I remember, by Formosa. And but this pick stitching, it's a question of taste.
Oh, it can be
It's
beautiful.
taste.
It is taste.
Yes.
So if you remove a jacket
Yes.
from someone and they say, take a look at my jacket, what might you look at to see if it's a handmade jacket or
Okay.
not?
So the first thing there was a tradition on bespoke. I'm not sure if it's true on this one. Actually, I have no idea. I'm going to put on my glasses.
Okay.
And this one, no, it has no label.
So it
Zero.
has no label.
No label. The label is normally, it is inside. Look.
And a handmade jacket
Look.
usually has a label inside the pocket.
Can you go on this, Cosmos? Do you have it? So there's my name, Hugo Giacomet, November 2015. So it's 6 years ago, and it's number 18809, whatever. So yeah, most of the people. Well, it tells something. Honestly, it tells something. Well, it might be a little bit esoteric for the people who are not into the bespoke culture, but that's a culture. It's about discretion. When you go for a bespoke jacket like this one, or many others that I have, or suits, most of the time, it's because you educated yourself and you went out of the big brands who are precisely selling you their label. You understand, everybody understand that, some bags, handbags, or whatever bags, or even some shirts, sweaters, T-shirts, are worn by people only for the logo, to show others that, you see, I have the money to buy myself a or a all this big name, big
Of
logo.
course.
Okay. Now, the bespoke crowd has exactly the reverse way of thinking. we want to stop being the slaves of the labels. We don't want to wear something just to show others that we have the wallet to buy this brand. And it's very true among young people, even in some sportswear. So we do the contrary. We go as far as to hide the label inside the pocket. It means that if you want to see what is the brand of my jacket, only me, if I want to share it with you, I have to make the effort to deep dive into I know the brand, but to deep dive into my pocket and show you what it is. So it's spiritually very interesting. You see how details speaks tons about what you have in mind. Discretion is not because this jacket is probably 3 times the price of a ready-to-wear, because it's been handmade, that I have to show it to the people. Look at my beautiful, no. It's no label, and it's something which is more important than you can imagine.
When someone listens to you say this for the first time, this is like a contagion, that if this is the way that you think and you believe and you see as a good perspective in life, that can hook somebody on handmade clothes for the rest of their lives. Just this said? Section, yes, because something resonates in terms of the philosophy and the approach to this art form.
Yeah, you decide you will stop being a consentant slave to the brands and being a little billboard for them.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that we are not supporting brands ourselves, but of a certain level in terms of value. But the thing in the bespoke culture is all about that. Of course, it doesn't mean we want to hide the name of our tailor. Well, some people do, actually, because they don't want their tailors to be
I do know someone,
exactly.
And I think Cosmos knows someone too who keeps that very private.
Yeah. He has a friend in Athens, and he doesn't want to share the name of his tailors.
Which is his art. That used to be the way people looked at it in the past, because they wanted to keep the tailor busy for them.
But this idea of hiding, putting the label in the pocket, I think took another meaning more recently with the mass marketing. Yes. And for us, I must admit, it's a pride for me just not to show a big label inside my jacket. Some lower level ready-to-wear makers, sometimes of good quality, good value, good price for ratio price quality. But they sometimes use the label of the cloth mill. Vitale Barberis Canonico,
I have seen that. Drago, I have seen that, of course, yes.
Loro Piana, Zegna. And it's something I don't really like, because it's like fooling people. Make them believe that they are wearing a Loro Piana jacket. Yes, the cloth is from Loro Piana, but not the making.
Very good point.
So,
very good point.
Labels, it's all about representation, it's a very interesting subject on its own.
Really is.
And marketing has been spending, corporations have been spending billions and zillions on having a logo recognized. The bespoke attitude and the bespoke crowd, we have the reversed idea, is that please stop being the slave of brand and don't show your brand. If somebody wants to know, you have to deep dive in your pocket and share with him not only the name, but also the date. And that's pretty important for us, because this jacket will survive me. Well, yeah, it will. It's a very sturdy, beautiful wool with a kind of a tweedish effect and a very strong pattern from drapers in Bologna. This is indestructible, basically. So this idea of, it's always a surprise for me when I look inside my pocket and I say, oh, this jacket is 6 years old in this case. But I have jackets sometimes I wear, so I don't remember when I did this, and I look at it as 2011, for example, 10 years ago. That's a satisfaction for me when I think that, oh yeah, I'm wearing this jacket since 10 years. I didn't notice it.
Very nice. Let's move to canvassing.
Yes.
Okay, canvassing is often described as the guts of a jacket.
Because it is.
Yeah, and it's a material of sort of a muslin mixed with the horsehair, mixed with cotton wadding also, which isn't the canvassing, was the padding.
Yeah,
and
because,
so
this is padding.
So I'm going to ask you, if you had a jacket in your hand, do you think you could determine whether there's canvas inside the jacket or not?
Easy.
Can you explain to people
how to do
that?
Everybody knows that. I mean, most of people know that. Okay, well, the canvas. Well, there are three kinds of jackets. You have the fused jacket, the half canvas jacket, and the full canvas jacket. It's very easy. Fused, it tells what it tells. It's glue, basically. So you have your fabric, and then inside you have a canvas, but it's glued. We call it thermocollé in French. And so this is on very, very cheap suits, and cheap suits in general. You'll see after 1 year or 2 years, you start to have some bubbles. It's because it's glued.
Basically, it's a reaction of the glue to, say, the humidity.
Yeah, specifically when you
heat.
wear it a lot.
I think people can notice this rippling that takes place when there is waving and rippling.
So that's a fused suit. Well, fortunately, I have the impression, but I'm not sure. Of course, if you go to $50 suits, brand new, it is fused. When you go some kind in some places in Southeast Asia, be very careful. Also, in Hong Kong or in Malaysia, sometimes they speak about canvassing, but it's fused. So we have to be very careful with that. But most of the time, I think that it's disappearing, or the quality of the fusing is improving. I don't know what is happening, but I see less and less fuse. Maybe it's because channels like us exist and people are looking for canvas, or blogs. A lot of blogs are speaking about that.
Before you move on, let's stay on the fusing, for example, and the use of glue. The use of glue is not always evil. It's just evil 97% of the time.
Well, not all the time.
Sometimes glue is used with some major bespoke houses in the lapel itself to create a better roll.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that it's evil. It's just a method or a technique to amp up the roll, and the quality of the material is used at the highest level. So I just want to throw that in, so no one freaks out if they see a little bit of glue somewhere.
No, of course not. But in the structure of the suit, so you have this fused suit that is glued, and then you have the half canvas. Half is you take the jacket, it goes up to here. The chest and the lapel has what we call a free-floating canvas. So instead of being glued, it is free-floating.
Yes.
That is to say, you have a canvas, which is some kind of it's made of a little bit of horsehair, and I think it's cotton, and it's very, very rough. It has to be sturdy.
It's stiff, it has a lot of snapback to it.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so when we say it's half canvas, is that at this part you have a free floating canvas. And how do you notice it's free floating? You take both sides of the jacket, and you can feel the canvas. It's not glued. It is
Nor
free.
is it sewn to one side or the other.
Exactly.
It's literally floating around in the middle of your two pieces of fabric.
It is free floating.
Yes.
And so it allows the canvas to take wear after wear to take the shape of your body. And with the memory, the snapback property of the horsehair, it has a reload property, and then it really goes. So that's half canvas. And I would say most of the time, industrial suits are half canvas those days. It's rarer to find fully canvas suit. Fully canvas, it says it's the same thing up to the bottom of the whole jacket.
Which just means the guts or the free-floating piece of cloth
everywhere.
That's sandwiched in between the two pieces of fabric on your jacket.
Yep.
It's going all the way down to the bottom of the coat.
So once again, I don't want people to become totally obsessed with canvas, half canvas, full canvas. Sometimes people just mix a little bit things. Well, yes, it is better to have at least a half canvas jacket. If you go bespoke or handmade, normally a handmade suit will have full canvassing all the time. What will be the advantage of doing everything by hand and don't do a full canvas?
Only if you live in a tropical climate or someplace that's really hot.
Of course. Yeah. But what I want to say is that, now, I don't know if there's a sartorial movement. We believe there is. Our niche is growing little by little. But what is sure is that go at least for a half canvas jacket. And if you can, normally it's a little bit more expensive, go for a full canvas suit, because you're going to wear this more, you're going to keep it longer, whatever you're doing with it, because it's just mechanical. I mean, a fully canvas suit is more sturdy and has more beautiful line than a half canvas, and of course, than a fused
and the
crap.
tailor's putting a lot of effort and movement, ironing and shaping with the hands, so it all adds up.
Shaping, you shape a jacket basically with an iron and steam.
Yes.
The cut is important, but the ironing and the steam after each fitting, this is where the magic happens.
Yes, and you did write an amazing article in the past on canvassing, and we can drop that into the link.
Yeah, we can do links. Our friend Julien Scavelli did a fantastic one.
Oh, that's good.
With drawings explaining everything.
Okay, let's talk about something else now. We're getting technical here because I think this menswear subject has just been hammered to pieces, so we want to get something fresh in here. So,
what do you mean hammered to pieces? I mean, I've been told...
Well, over the 11, 12 years that the sartorial movement's been coming back, that we were hearing a lot of repetitive information. So we like to throw in some spice from time to time. Okay. So what about something called allowance? Can you speak to that? The fabric allowance.
Fabric allowance means the amount of fabric that you leave inside the jacket.
Yes.
Okay. In French, we have a very weird name. We call it l'embut. L'embut, it's this place... when you open a jacket, if it's lined, you can't see it, but inside, bespoke or handmade jacket, they will leave, the maker will leave, either if it's a bespoke tailor or a sartorial by hand, they will leave an average of 7 centimeters of fabric in where you can see the seams inside the jacket. As normally you see a little line like that, and there's around 7 centimeters. 7 centimeters is a lot.
We pulled out one of your jackets today.
Yes.
It was a gray jacket, I think, Holland cherry fabric, and we flipped the gray jacket over, and when we pressed the material down, we could see the fabric allowance, and that's for if you gain weight, you can use that extra fabric to widen the jacket out, and if you lose weight, of course, you can pull it back in.
Exactly, and only bespoke or handmade operation keep these 7 centimeters inside, because 7 centimeters all the way down to the jacket and on every part, it's a lot of fabric at the end.
Yeah, and it's 7 centimeters if you add it all up, right? It's not like one seam with 7 centimeters. Because some have 2 seams, and they'll have part of
each seam. There
on each particular seam.
It's called l'embut. That is to say, it's. Let's take it like that. It's a reserve of fabric inside the jacket.
Yes.
There are many different techniques around that, but let's say that. How do you call it? Allowance.
An allowance, a fabric allowance to use that fabric to widen or narrow the
So
seam.
the average allowance of a handmade jacket, well, let's speak about chiffonelli, for example, in Paris, they leave 7 centimeters. So I don't know what 7 centimeters is in inches. I'm still struggling with the inches. 7 centimeters would be this.
Yes, and that's 2 inches. That looks like 2 inches to me.
2 inches, something like that. And so, of course, it's easy to understand. High-level handmade makers, they can leave this because they know that, and listen to that. It's interesting if you connect the dots. Okay, why do they leave some fabric inside? Because they want your garment to be more durable. What do you do with a ready-to-wear jacket who only not even have 1 centimeter of fabric? Because when you craft industrial jacket, you want to make as much savings as you can an industrial.
Exactly.
So you want to buy the least amount. A guy who is making, 500,000 meters of suits, he used 500,000 of meters of fabric to make suits. Believe me, 7 centimeters on inside the jacket, it's a lot. At the end of the year, it's probably hundreds and even thousands of meters.
Good point.
So it's about wasting. It's about not wasting, and it's about making some savings. But a tailor will on purpose leave more, and when you really think about it, they're almost killing their own business, because it means that you can put on 10 pounds, 15 pounds, or you can lose 10 pounds, 15 pounds, and still the tailor will reshape the jacket to you. If you are ready to wear, you have to throw it away.
Yes.
Or to give it to somebody, or to wait until your next diet so that you can come back to your size. But with a bespoke tailor and a handmade jacket, you have this liberty. Of course, you pay more at the beginning, but if you lose 100 pounds, that's another subject. But over the span of a lifetime, I think it's normal to be up 20 pounds, down 20 pounds, more or less. And with a handmade suit, of course, you invest more, but it's an investment for life because you're going to be able to, able to reshape your jacket,
right?
Depending on your weight.
I guess you could open up your jacket, look inside your jacket, and look at the lining and see along the seam if there is extra fabric on each side.
Yep.
That's something you can do just with your eyes.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
You open your jacket and it's easier.
Leave your jacket open. I do see that, of course. Leave your jacket.
It's too difficult.
Open your jacket.
This one, actually.
There's two more items. This is the finishing of the jacket. It's another thing you can look at. It's more of a perceptive thing. If you look inside your jacket, you look at the finishing. This is a woman's jacket, so mine is not as refined as yours at all. But this type of finishing is very indicative of a handmade suit.
Mm-hmm. With actually, what is interesting, look, I don't know if you can. You can
look
even
at that.
see you can see directly the canvassing here on this one. You see that?
I see that.
This is crazy. And you can see it is handmade. You can see the stitching.
Look
of
at
the
that.
Pocket. It is. You can see the guts, literally. And that's a beautiful, look at that.
That's fantastic.
You see? So look, you can literally see the guts. Okay, that's beautiful canvassing. You can and you can see the padding and the wax here. You call it the wax?
I just call it the wadding. The wadding.
The wadding. So you can see canvassing and the wadding, and it's very interesting, and it goes back into place.
Very well done. So it's another thing you can do to know if it's a handmade suit or not. Look at the fabric finish, or the finishing we call. That's just the fine detail work that's done inside the jacket, and that's going to say a lot.
Yeah, giving the fact, having in mind that some industrial try to mimic this and to do some kind, but most of the time, the industrial jacket,
I don't think they're going to that.
They go too far, and they use contrasting stitching to make people
some strange things.
Some strange things.
So you can kind
so
of
it's kind of interesting. If it's too neat, it's not bespoke probably. But look at that. I do it again.
Yeah, do it again.
Look at that. If you want to see, look at that. You can see the guts of the jacket here. And some people would say, "Oh my God, that's a bad quality." No, on the contrary, it means. Look, when I do this, it goes back in place by itself. That means this is great, great canvassing.
Yes, and not all upper level jackets will allow you to see that, but that kind of work will be inside the jacket.
Exactly.
Last area, and then we wrap up this talk.
Sure.
What about the shoulder? What do you notice in a shoulder that tells you whether the suit is a handmade suit or not?
Well, the shoulder is probably one of the most essential part of a jacket. And this is where you can notice the quality of a jacket. First of all, it has to be a natural. I don't know if mine is natural because I lost a little bit of weight recently, but this is kind of a natural.
Yes.
The line is very natural. If it starts to go like that, it's not a good sign.
That's the rumpled cloth
exactly.
on top.
It has to be natural. And then after it depends, this is a Milanese jacket, so there's a little bit of padding. It's a conrollino. I think there's a rope actually inside. This one also is light, but there's a little bit of a roping. And in Naples, of course, they do this sucamiscia, that is to say, instead of going above, it's going under. But these are
the jacket's sewn like a shirt.
Exactly.
So
but
you
natural is the word for
you look
shoulder.
at the shoulders, and if you see this is very subjective, if you see some magic going on in the shoulders, it's probably involving some kind of handmade work. But if you just see a flat shoulder with no distinction, and it's a perceptive thing. If there's something lacking in that shoulder, it's just another indicator.
Yeah.
Finally, something that you can actually measure. It's our last point on determining whether a jacket's handmade or not. And that is the size of the armhole.
Yeah.
Probably the best thing you can look at right away to know whether a jacket's handmade or not.
Yeah, but for that you will have maybe to try on the jacket to see if the armhole is high or low.
Good point.
That's very important. You can't see it with your own eyes. But if you see somebody's wearing a jacket The armhole, which is high, we told this many times, but it's good to refresh on that. This is so important.
Very important.
This one has a high armhole. That is to say, it's smaller. The armhole is smaller. It's the hole where this is attached to the suit. And it's high because if it were lower, I would do this and my jacket would do that.
Would move up and down. So we can say the armhole is literally the hole where your armpit is.
Yes.
And so one thing you can do, as you said, put on the jacket and lift your arm up.
Yeah.
I have a very high armhole on this
me too.
Delcroix jacket.
Me too.
So when I lift my arm up, my whole jacket is not shifting up and down. If I had a big armhole here, for example, I'll attach it to here, my whole jacket would come up. And this is just magic.
That makes me smile.
This is magic.
This makes me smile because when you explain that, when you do this with a high armhole, your jacket doesn't come with you, but with bad suits and low armhole, your jacket comes you.
Up.
I have a lot of pictures of politicians,
Yes.
in the elections contest, or even some evangelists or
Yes.
pastors.
And when they raise their arms, their entire jacket will come up over their ears.
Yeah, this is
because
crazy.
the armhole is too large. It's
You
so simple.
forgot one thing, darling.
Please.
If it was your last point, is the color of the jacket. You
Ah,
can see
yes,
very
we did
easily.
talk about this.
You have this piece of fabric which is turned back, and you can see that not a machine will do this. Turn back on the felt. It's difficult to show here, but most of the color of handmade jacket are attached to the jacket by hand. You can see there's a stitch in line. And
Yes.
this is the sign that he has been, on dit rabattu à la main, that he's been putting back in place by hand, this little stitch. And most of the time it's felt, but you can
I'm
find
so glad you
felt.
added that. It's so important. And even when I look at mine, I still have the same color coming around, but I don't have the felt.
Yes.
So
Well, this is because it's denim.
yeah, of
So
course,
it's
a
very
different
different.
material. It's
But
different
it's
material.
attached by hand because you have a seam.
Very good point about the collar. Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, I want to add something which is for me the mother of all. The mother of all rules in our trade is that the fit is everything.
Yes.
Honestly, darling, if somebody would show me an industrial jacket with a crappy, really bad fabric, but the fit would be perfect, I will not exchange this one for a fantastic super 300 whatever, super 280 or even in Vigunia, but badly cut. Well, normally when you have the means to buy Vigunia, you have the means to go to the best tailor. But just to have the picture in mind, the fit is everything.
Okay, and I will add, for me, the proportions are everything.
Well,
so if I see a strange pocket placements or, the legs look long and the jacket looks super short or vice versa, to me, I can look at somebody, and maybe you too, when you start practicing, if you haven't already, you can look at somebody and see if something's off or not. And this is, to me, proportions are magic.
So we can say in one sentence, the fit and the style. Because proportion is about the style. You can mess up a whole jacket, which is the best made jacket in the world, with handmade, hundreds of hours is necessary, if the tailor has no style in his eye. If he doesn't know if a close quarter or an open quarter it's better for you because of your body shape, or he doesn't understand, depending on your height, if he has to move the height of the notch a little bit lower to give this little Hollywood 1940s style, or a little bit up. This is more recent. It can change the whole thing. Style is important. This is why I believe today, and maybe I'm a dreamer, but I hope I'm not the only one, that the young generation who is arriving on this market as new tailors, they have both. They have the tradition and the know-how, and they have the style and the flair. Yes. And this is not a given. I know incredible tailors who have no style. They're not very good at styling. They just do the same jacket since 40 years. And then I know tailors who are maybe less advanced technically, but they still do a good job by hand, but they have flair and they have style. Okay, we know Lorenzo Cifonelli is probably the good example. He's in his early 50s, and he has both. He has the ancestral technique and the eye. And we can say the same for the Rubinacci people with Luca and his team of tailors. We can say the same for the new generation on Savile, Michael Brown, for example, very good. Joe Morgan is also a very good very good example who trained Michael Brown, by the way. Joe Morgan, we love him because he's loyal to a style, which is the style from the Nutters of London with Edward Sexton and Tommy Nutter back in the years. So he has styles. So if you go to a tailor, ask for style.
That's a great point. And even I think about Gigi Del Corre, who has passed now, and how he took the suiting for a woman, which was at a time when not a lot of tailors were doing that,
sure.
More are doing it now. And he created a magical suit for me with great proportions because he had that connection with his clients, and he had the flair. He knew what
so
he was
this
doing.
is why we want to reunite a little bit, because
Very
there's
good.
always this crazy talk and battle, and we've been in this fight, you and me, between the designers and the tailors. Well, I believe that the ultimate solution, if you really want to go far and to have the best garment crafted for you, is to find a tailor who has both.
Yeah,
who can advise you in terms of style and also make your garment in the traditional way. So maybe it's a kind of a hybrid that we need these days to make you look at your best.
With that, I have nothing to add except to say we'll see you next time on Sartorial Talks, and until then,
Cheers everybody.